Hi everybody and welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And we're talking about VTubers who are virtual YouTubers.
Yes, these are animated characters. They look like cartoons, basically, and they're created kind of in the same way that many cartoons and video games are created today, using motion capture. That's where the actor might wear a funny looking outfit with little dots on it, and they film them and then put that into a computer, turn it into a cartoon, and then they look like they're moving like real people. They'll use the voices of real people too. The difference is in movies and video games, they do this months before you actually see them on the screen, whereas with VTubers, they often do it live.
Yeah, and that's a pretty difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
But they've become very popular in recent years, especially in Japan, which is maybe no surprise given the big sort of anime and cartoon character popularity
They
there.
love new technology in Japan.
Sure.
Yep, and one of the most well-known is Kazuna AI, and she has more than 3 million followers.
Yeah.
We're not sure if she's a she, because she's not really a woman or a girl. She's computer software, but she sounds like a girl and she's acted probably by a girl, but we're not looking at the real person, we're looking at this virtual personality.
Yeah, but she does wear a cute outfit and she really can interact with followers. She plays games, talks to them, behaves like a real person would.
Absolutely. People can have conversations with her live, talking to a computer character or what looks like a character. And because these characters are animated and of course they are fictional, they're not real people, they can have extreme personalities, be really interesting in ways that people aren't. They can have interesting personal histories, have lives filled with mystery and excitement like most people don't. And that of course is part of their appeal.
Yep, and of course they will appeal to anime fans too.
Absolutely.
Today we're going to find out more about VTubers. Let's check out part 2.
Reading.
The unusual world of VTubers. Kizuna Ai is often credited with being the first VTuber. Another example is Japanese vlogger Ami Yamato, who loves to explore the streets of London and drink at Starbucks. However, she seems unaware that she's animated. To answer those who don't believe she's real, she says, "Nobody is real on YouTube. Everyone is a persona of their true self." Many people prefer VTubers to human vloggers because the computer-generated characters are not restricted by the limitations of the real world. Also, with so many human YouTubers creating videos, audiences sometimes look for something different to watch. VTubers are having a big impact on internet culture. Companies and individuals that create VTubers are being hired to host events and make special appearances. Kizuna Ai became so popular that the Japanese government hired her to represent the Japan National Tourism Organization. VTubers are also becoming common on streaming platforms like Twitch. The VTuber trend shows no sign of slowing down. Who knows? Perhaps VTubers will be hosting TV shows and writing books before the end of this decade.
All right, so our article for today talks about the VTuber that we met yesterday, Kazuna AI. It says Kazuna AI is often credited with being the first VTuber. All right, so she might not have been the first VTuber. Someone might have thought about this and maybe worked on it as a college project at school or something like that. But in terms of the public knowing them, in terms of becoming popular, she certainly was the first or one of the first. So that's why she's credited with being the first VTuber. When we credit someone or something with something, we're basically giving them this sort of the role of being the one who did it, all right? Maybe they weren't in the real book of history, but in terms of what most people know, what most people understand, this was where it started, all right? So Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak are often credited Apple is credited with making the first home computer. There might have been another one made by some other engineers a few years before, but in terms of the one that really got people's attention, that people were writing about in newspapers and magazines, they're often given that credit, given sort of the role as being the ones who did it.
Okay, but Kizuna AI is not the only one. We see in the article another example is Japanese vlogger Ami Yamato, who loves to explore the streets of London and drink at Starbucks. All right, fair enough. A lot of people enjoy both of those things.
Can computer programs drink coffee?
I guess
they can. However, with this other character, Ami Yamamoto, she seems unaware that she's animated. Yeah, if you watch her videos, she looks like a cartoon character, but she dresses and behaves much more like a real person, and she isn't talking about living in a virtual world. She's walking around with the real streets of London right there behind her, talking to people, but she just looks like she kind of stepped out of a cartoon into the real world. And being a cartoon character, being a virtual personality is not part of her personality. It's like she's unaware that she's from a computer. If you're unaware of something, this adjective basically means you don't know about something. Something's going on, something's happening around you, and you're like, what? No, I hadn't heard that. I didn't know. I was unaware of that. If you're walking down the street looking at your phone, that can be dangerous because you might be unaware of what's going on around you. If you're trying to cross the street while looking at your phone and you're unaware of things around you, that could be very dangerous. If you don't listen to the news, if you have one of those days where you don't look at Facebook, you just kind of read a book at home, don't turn on the TV, you might be unaware of things that are happening around you. That's why people like to, watch the news or check in on social media. That will make you aware. If you know about something, you're aware. If you don't know about it, if the news just passed you by, you are unaware. For example, kids are often unaware of many of the problems their parents face. Ooh, that's a good point. If your dad had an argument with his boss or your mom had a fight with a coworker at work and they don't tell you about it, you might be unaware of this because, you're a kid and they didn't tell you about it.
Okay, so Ami doesn't know she's a cartoon, she doesn't believe it, but people probably ask her, and we see in the article, to answer those who don't believe she's real, she says, nobody is real on YouTube.
Even the real humans aren't being their real selves, they're being their YouTube personalities on YouTube is what she's saying. Everyone is a persona of their true self. Wow. That's deep and interesting, yeah. Basically, a persona, it's kind of like a character. It's kind of like the character that you might play in real life, not in a film or a play or a story, in real life. Think of it when you see your parents or when you're talking to your teacher, you might be very polite and very nice and not make a lot of jokes. But then when you're with your friends, you like to laugh, you might make naughty jokes or something like that. These are different personas that you might put on through your life. We often change our personality to fit the situation or the group of people that we are in. So in some ways we have different personas, and we know that the people on YouTube who might look so perfect and be so interesting, they can't possibly be like that 24 hours a day.
True. Okay, now a lot of through day one, I was wondering, why are VTubers so popular and why are they starting to replace some humans? Well, we see in the article many people prefer VTubers to human vloggers because the computer-generated characters are not restricted by the limitations of the real world. So this is kind of a confusing idea, so let's break down some of the words and phrases in that sentence. We'll start with the phrase prefer A to B. That just means you like one thing better than another thing. If you prefer A to B, you like A more than or better than B. You may still like them both, you just like A more. and people just prefer these computer-generated characters.
Yeah, and when we use this word generate, we're basically saying create, to make something that wasn't there before, and through some process you make it, right? Your bodies generate energy by digesting food that you eat. A car might generate power in its motor by burning gas, and computers can use programs and software and electricity as well to generate pictures and images and stuff on the screen. They create it, they make it. So computer generated just means made through a computer and the software that it's using.
Yeah, and these characters, because they're made on computers, they don't have the same limitations as we do. A limitation is something that stops you or holds you back. Maybe something about yourself, maybe it's the rules, or it could be the physical conditions of the world around you. We can't fly. That's one of our limitations, but a computer-generated character could. But that's not the only reason that YouTubers or VTubers are popular.
That's right. Also, they're new and fresh and interesting, as it says. Also, with so many human YouTubers creating videos, audiences sometimes look for something different to watch. Yes, if you want to find a human YouTuber talking about almost anything, there are probably 100 people out there talking about any one topic. But finding a kind of live, interactive, computer-generated cartoon character, that's new, it's fresh, it's interesting. So of course, that also explains a lot of their appeal.
Right, and as the article says, VTubers are having a big impact on internet culture. An impact is an effect, an influence. You're causing maybe some changes, or you're causing a change in the way things are. You're certainly not just disappearing without kind of any sort of effect or any influence or nobody remembering you.
Yeah, making a big change.
Exactly. So we could say a bad diet can have a huge impact on your health. You'll get worse, it'll cause a bad change. So you can have a positive impact as well as a negative one. But what are some of these impacts? What are they doing?
Well, of course, if you're getting millions of fans on YouTube, people will notice. And it says companies and individuals that create VTubers are being hired to host events and make special appearances. If you are the hot new YouTuber, the hot new actor or pop star or sports star out there, of course, companies would want to hire you, people would want to work with you, have you in their film or movie, or hold up their product and say, buy this because I'm popular. It's the same with VTubers, except instead of paying the actual character who aren't real people, they're hiring the companies and the people that make the VTubers. The programmers, the software engineers, and the minds behind them are being hired, and of course the characters as well, to host events and make special appearances. It'd be like paying Harry Potter to come and, sell your product or something like that. And when we talk about an individual in this kind of case, we're using it, of course, as a noun, and we're basically saying a person. All right, if we say an individual, we're saying basically a person. It's not a word we might use in a kind of casual way. I will invite 10 individuals to my birthday party. No, you would say I'll invite 10 people to my birthday party. But if we're using it in a more formal or scientific kind of way, then we can use this. Here's one you might hear or read in a news report, for example. The police are looking for 2 dangerous individuals who robbed a bank yesterday. If they said 2 dangerous people, it might sound a little too casual. They can't really say 2 dangerous men because they might not know. So they're saying 2 dangerous individuals. But when we hear it, we're thinking people.
And these computer-generated characters, they make an appearance at special events. To make an appearance means to show up at a place. Now, this could just be making an appearance at a party, like somebody goes to it.
I have to go make an appearance at my friend's party.
Yeah, I need to kind of be there. People need to see me. But it often means as a featured guest. So we could talk about a famous movie star making an appearance on a TV show. They kind of show up, they do a few funny funny bits and then that's it. They don't affect the main story too much, but everybody watches that episode for the guest star.
Right.
Because they're making a special appearance.
I saw a
like
Jay Chou concert and the lead singer of Mayday made an appearance.
Right.
And they sang
exactly
2 or 3 songs together.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, Kazuna AI became so popular that the Japanese government hired her to represent the Japan National Tourism Organization.
Ooh.
So this is a real government agency, a real government department that's there to promote tourism in the country of Japan. And instead of hiring a famous pop star, a baseball star, or someone like that, they hired a VTuber, a virtual reality anime character, to get people to come and visit Japan and, spend their money too.
I guess it makes sense because you remember talking about the robots they used for the Tokyo thing. So if the theme is all about modern technology, why not have a VTuber to represent you?
And you're trying to get millions of young people around the world to think about going to Japan. Some 40-year-old old baseball star is not going to interest them. So why not get someone young and popular to represent your country, your business, your organization in some kind of way? What does it mean to represent? Basically, you're standing for someone, you're acting for someone. They all can't be there, so they send one person, and that person sort of says, what I do, what I say, what I decide, I'm talking for this bigger group that's kind of standing behind me. Not really there, but basically what I do, I'm doing in their name. For example, politicians. The president represents all the people of her country at international meetings.
Okay, so we also see it's not just in kind of events like this. They're still kind of changing from YouTube to other platforms, to use that word from day one. VTubers are also becoming common on streaming platforms like Twitch. So this relates to a question I was asking yesterday. I mean, are they on YouTube where you've got time to edit the video and add all the extra stuff in and make sure it looks good? Or are they live streaming? Because streaming is the practice of watching online content directly without downloading it first. Now, there are 2 types. It could be stuff like Netflix is streaming, Disney Plus is streaming. The content is there, you don't need to download it onto your computer, you just watch it. But streaming could also be live streaming. This is a live video, it's happening right now. It's not being edited and nothing else is going on. It's basically live.
Like if you're watching a sports game of some kind live on the computer. There you go. And it says, the VTuber trend shows no sign of slowing down. VTubers, of course, are still popular on YouTube, but now they're appearing in all sorts of other areas of entertainment, life, always on the internet, of course, or having computers involved, but they show no signs of slowing down. They're continuing to be popular and will probably become more popular in the future. It's a trend that's not going anywhere. And a trend, this noun basically means a fashion or a style movement that's kind of new and fresh these days. A lot of people are doing it or following it or paying attention to it. The other idea of trends is that they come and then they go. They're here for a limited period of time. You wouldn't say, oh yeah, there's a trend for wearing jackets when it's cold. No, people always wear jackets when it's cold. But if they're wearing leather jackets or long jackets or colorful jackets, those are trends that might change year after year. So fashion, music, the types of movies that everyone's making and watching, these types of things are trends. They'll come along, they might be popular for a few months or even a few years, but then eventually things will change, and 10 years from now we'll look back and go, remember when we all used to do this? Because we don't do it anymore. That trend has gone away. For example, the trend these days is for large, chunky running shoes. Yeah, lots of people are wearing these big, kind of large-looking running shoes. 10 years ago, they probably weren't wearing them.
And this trend shows no signs of slowing down. No. If something shows signs of doing something, then it's displaying some kind of evidence or hints about either what's really happening or what will happen in the future. So if something's showing no signs, then it's not doing this. There's no evidence, there's nothing we can look at to say, well, fewer people are watching VTubers now than they did 6 months ago. That would be a sign that the trend is ending. There is no sign of that. That's not happening. So there's no sign of the trend ending.
There you go. So who knows? Perhaps VTubers will be hosting TV shows and writing books before the end of this decade. They've kind of taken over YouTube, but maybe they'll start to kind of take over or appear more in other types of entertainment, making TV shows, hosting TV shows, and even writing books.
I can see TV shows. Books is a bit more of a stretch, but hey, who knows?
Interesting. But anyways, before the end of this decade means before the end of the next 10-year period. A decade is simply a 10-year period. And when we're talking about it in sort of a history kind of way, we often mean those 10 years with zeros at the beginning and the end. The 2010s to the 2020s, that would be a decade. But it really could be 10 years of any kind. If you lived in a country from 2011 to 2021 or 2021, that also is a decade. But often in history, we talk about the 1980s, the 1990s, the 2010s, those decades or those 10-year periods. For example, Nigel moved away from home over a decade ago. So more than 10 years ago, Nigel probably went off to college and moved away from his home.
Yeah, so who knows, maybe in the next 10 years we'll have virtual people instead of Mike and I, and we'll be out of a job.
Or we can just stand over here and the computer can act out what we're saying.
Yeah, could work.
Hey.
Well, we'll talk a bit about what we think of those ideas in today's For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So the question is, what's your opinion on VTubers? And would you watch a cartoon vlogger on YouTube, or do you prefer real people, and why?
Interesting. Well, I don't know if I have an opinion on VTubers. They're just kind of new to me a little bit. There aren't really that many of them around, so I think they're kind of interesting right now, you know, seeing how they do it. Kind of, you watch them carefully to see how human they actually look. So I think they're pretty interesting these days, but I don't know if they'll be popular forever. There's just something about real people, real conversation, getting together with your friends in real life as opposed to chatting with them all the time on the internet that people kind of come back to. You know, we're human animals, we're social monkeys. So I think people will always come back to the real, the human, you know, after some time. But I think they're going to be around, and I think they'll be part of entertainment. I don't think they'll be taking over, though.
No, I mean, personally, I would say it doesn't really matter, because when I'm watching the YouTube videos that I mentioned in yesterday's For You Chat, it's people's opinions I want to hear, and therefore it doesn't really matter. Often the people aren't on screen talking, they're just voiceovers, you know, or they're just kind of people in their libraries chatting. So I don't need a cartoon host. I actually want to hear the opinions. I'm barely looking at the people. It doesn't matter one way or the other for the kind of content I want to watch. So yeah, sure, it might work for some things, but for me, it doesn't matter whether they're real or cartoons. It's about the actual content. But that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. For English For You, I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And we'll talk to you again later. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Vocabulary Review. Unaware. The teacher was unaware that Jenny was cheating on the test, so she got a perfect score. Impact. My grandfather taught many children to read, and his work had an impact on his small village. Individual. Only individuals are allowed to sign up for the race. No teams are allowed. Represent. Kathy represented her team when speaking about their project at the National Science Fair. Trend. During COVID-19, distance learning became a trend all over the world. Decade. During the past decade, Sally has finished college, gotten married, and had 2 children.
智慧小补帖
Persona. Generate. Limitation. Streaming.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net